Hello, everyone. Thanks for checking in to see what Strong Medicine's request was, and apologies to anyone who feels like this is a bait and switch. But for those viewers here in the US, Tuesday is Election Day. Before anyone reflexively stops the video and hits the dislike button, let me be clear about something. I am not going to tell you who to vote for. I'm not going to tell you which party to support, because let's face it, just about everyone has already made up their mind on those things, and a 5-minute video from some random guy on the internet is not going to change it. But what I do hope to change some minds on is to convince every US registered voter watching this video to vote. Every year, I hear people sound nihilistic about their vote or fatalistic about the election outcome. These notions often take the form of either both parties are the same, or all politicians are the same, or my vote doesn't matter because my state or my district is too red or too blue. So let me break down those ideas. First, the Democratic and Republican parties are not the same. Maybe they share more similarities than you would like. Maybe the two major parties don't represent the true diversity of political thought in America, including your own. But you don't need to wholeheartedly endorse every plank of a party's platform to still favor one over the other. When I think about the people I'm voting for this election, I don't completely support every single thing they say either, but that certainly does not make them indistinguishable from their competitors. Part of the phenomenon of political hyperpolarization that social media has accelerated has been a perception that tribal purity is essential. That if a person only agrees with me 90% of the time, or 95% of the time, or they look no different to me than the person who only agrees with me 10% of the time. But the problem is that when both major parties are full of candidates in their 60s and their 70s and sometimes their 80s, none of those people are going to share 100% of the values that the younger generations do. There are generational gaps in what people value. A progressive or conservative who is 80 years old is not going to perfectly represent the interests of a progressive or conservative who is 25 years old. And younger individuals, they're less likely to vote, making our politicians even less representative of the average American, including the typical American viewers of this channel. Or, put more bluntly, when younger people don't vote because neither the Democrats and Republicans perfectly represent their values, those politicians that get elected, they don't care about what matters to you. You're not voting for them or not voting for them either way. So why are they going to listen to what you have to say? I understand what it's like to be in a district or a state where neither of the leading candidates pay attention to the issues that are most important and closest to you. But one of those two candidates, wherever you happen to live, no matter what you happen to believe, one of the two candidates will be closer to an advocate or to an ally on whatever issue you're most passionate about than the other person is. Now, the second notion, my vote doesn't matter because I'm in a red state or a blue state. I moved from Pennsylvania to the San Francisco Bay Area, so I get it, I really do. It is incredibly frustrating that my vote for the Senate, the House, and the governorship matter far less than they would have back where I grew up. But here's the thing with that, though. Wherever you live, there are other elections going on. State assembly persons, town council members, school board, sheriff, judges, etc. And a lot of these positions, many of which are technically nonpartisan, may still be very competitive and may be really important to your day-to-day experience. I know that it's hard to be interested in these down ballot contests when you've likely never heard of any of the candidates before some signs started popping up on neighborhood lawns a few weeks ago. But in most, if not all, places in the United States, voters are sent something in the mail, something that looks like this. This is mine here. This is my county voter information guide. And in here, in addition to descriptions of the voting process and where to vote, and ballot box drop-off locations and things like that, is included a list of all the candidates for these seemingly random positions and personal statements where they discuss their position on certain things. Read them. See which candidate seems to value what you do. Go online and do a web search for the races to see any if any of the candidates have been endorsed by people or organizations who you do know and who you do trust. Especially for incumbents, there are likely news articles about them and videos of them speaking at local town and school board meetings. Maybe your impression is that these races don't actually matter to you. Why should you care who is sheriff if you never interact with law enforcement? Why should you care who is on the school board when you don't have any kids yourself? But these jobs do matter. How the police decide who to pull over for a traffic stop, or how and whether or not to discipline officers who break protocol, it matters. In the schools, what books are allowed in the library and who can use what bathroom, it matters. Whether your town supports rezoning to allow for higher density housing, it matters. All this influences how members of your community treat one another. It influences whether your friends and neighbors feel like they belong and are safe. It influences how bigger and more important politicians weigh the policy positions when they're in DC or in their state capitals. And it influences the values that will be instilled in the younger generations in your community, in some cases, the students who you'll be teaching when you're my age. I'm not going to tell you that this is the most important election of your lifetime. It likely isn't. It likely isn't even the most important election of this several-week period, as that would probably be last week's presidential election in Brazil, which, among other things, will help to shape the fate of the Amazon rainforest. But nevertheless, this election on Tuesday is still really important. The ability to vote is one of the most fundamental rights that people in this country have. So please exercise it. You don't need to live in a purple state or a purple district to have a vote and to have a voice that matters. If you're not sure how to vote in your state, I'll drop some relevant links into the video description. Even if you can't make it to the physical voting booth on Tuesday, there are likely other options for voting where you live. For example, California mails every voter a ballot that you can drop off at a ballot drop box at any point in the days leading up to Election Day. But every state is different, so check out the links for the relevant details. I'll leave the comments open, but, try to keep it civil. I do reserve the right to delete anything that gets too hyper-partisan or excessively inflammatory. And I will be back with medicine again next week.